have a story for you today, Seagull class, and it is about a group of animals called the Arthropoda. Now, you may have seen some of these animals before on our timeline of life. One of these types of animals is the trilobite. So you're welcome to open the photos that I attached to this lesson of the timeline of life and look at those. I'll also be putting some things up here as I give you this lesson. So these stories are about a group of animals that are weird and wonderful because when they appeared on Earth with their new kinds of bodies, which included, for the first time ever, a shield outside of their body, hard external protection, and also for the very first time, jointed limbs. So limbs for us are the arms or legs, but for them it's mostly these legs. And jointed means that they could bend. They had joints. Just like ours, we have an elbow. But before these animals, no other animal had this. They were so successful that at one point they dominated the seas. Those trilobites did. Over time, they managed to take over the land. Think about the insects. In fact, today, most of the planet's animals belong to this group. They are called arthropods. Arthropods comes from the Greek word arthro, which means jointed, and pod, which means feet. Jointed feet. Makes sense. The arthropods are the only invertebrates that have the ability to fly. Well, this new body plan for the arthropods allowed so many different experimentations, and they made all kinds of different animals. Even though not all of them have survived through time, today we still have some relatives of those ancient creatures who lived during the Cambrian seas, and they still exist today. One of them is the horseshoe crab. Well, what is it about the arthropods that allowed them to dominate first the sea and then the land? Most obvious is their body armor. That tough outer cuticle. It's made from a hardened protein plus something called chitin, which is another hard material that's made tough by nitrogen. So these two together, the cuticle and the chitin, form the whole exoskeleton, which means a skeleton on their outside that covers up their whole body and even extends into the front and rear of the gut of the animal, thus protecting it from predators and difficult environmental conditions like drought or fire. So, as we know, for the most part, the bodies of arthropods are divided into 3 distinct segments. There's the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Each region specialized for different purposes. Sometimes it appears that there are missing regions, but usually that's because some parts are fused and just appear as one. So even though there are distinct body parts and then jointed legs, the whole body, even at the joints, is still protected by this exoskeleton. All of it. that makes you wonder how these animals could move so well and be so flexible if their whole bodies are surrounded by a hard covering. Well, it's because at each intersection between the parts, the outer covering becomes thinner and is like a flexible membrane, permitting quick and efficient movement. So it gets a little thinner here, and it's bendable. Another fascinating and amazing fact about these jointed appendages is that they're designed to do different things. Some become mouth parts, some become antennae, others might become gills or claws or limbs. For walking, sometimes limbs for swimming. So we can say that these appendages of the arthropods offer the same variety of functions as does a Swiss Army knife. And to add to that variety, in the crayfish, the position of the joints of the walking legs vary from leg to leg. So this means that these limbs can move in all directions, allowing quick retreat from a threatening presence, from something trying to eat it. So it's easy to see the advantage of a fixed external armor, such as an exoskeleton, but what do you think its disadvantage might be? Well, it limits the size and growth of these animals. With the exception of the Arthropods, who grew to be 9 feet long in the Ordovician period, there haven't been any giant arthropods because the weight of the exoskeleton would be too cumbersome. Having fixed external armor also means that the animal inside the exoskeleton can outgrow it. When this happens, the arthropod has to shed his skin, or molt as we say, which means he really has to grow a whole new exoskeleton or covering. This process is interesting to watch if you've ever seen it. First, before he actually throws off the old mold, underneath his old exoskeleton, he grows the new one, and it's soft at first. And this helps to separate the two. The muscles and the other structures within the appendages soften and are reduced in bulk. They get smaller. The old cuticle then just splits off dorsally or on its back, and then the animal slowly withdraws itself. Perhaps you've seen a spider doing this, working its way out of its old covering. Well, when it's finished, it leaves the former covering complete, even to such minor features as the gut lining and the eye facets, so that on first view, it appears that there are now 2 spiders. But that's not really the case. The new covering will soon harden by chemical changes, and during that time that it's hardening, the animal is particularly vulnerable, which means it really doesn't have anything hard to protect itself against a predator. So it will hide away until the exoskeleton hardens. Well, because of the diversity of this group, that means because there's so many different animals in this group, there's so much to find out about arthropods. If you discover something about crustaceans or spiders, scorpions, insects, centipedes, millipedes, you will discover something about arthropods. Hey, why don't you begin a book about these animals? You can make your very own book. I can't wait to read it.